Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my library. If you're new here, hello, my name is Chinsia, and if you're not new here and you're one of my lovely regulars, hi, how are you? I hope you're doing splendidly. So let's talk about the latest, news about the falsification of Russian history on a Chinese Wikipedia page. I just thought it'd be very on brand to explore the types of modifications that take place or have taken place over Wikipedia over the past few years, starting with, the latest story about someone manipulating the history page without anyone noticing for a decade. I mean, okay, we all know that the information found on Wikipedia should only be taken with a pinch of salt. And whilst you can use it to check, superficial facts, such as the filmography of your favourite actor or publications of your favourite author, it shouldn't be taken as gospel. We're all taught that at school and university. And this is because, as a user-generated source, Wikipedia can be edited by anyone at any time, and any information it contains at a particular time could be classified as vandalism, or it could be seen as just purely a work in progress, or simply incorrect. Additionally, Wikipedia entries are written by different people in different languages, meaning there are even more significant cultural differences between the exact same entries per Wikipedia page. So, for example, Germany's international broadcaster DW analysed the German, Russian and Ukrainian entries about Crimea, which Russia annexed from Ukraine in March 2014. The German version called Crimea a Ukrainian peninsula, whilst the Russian didn't mention its belonging to the Ukraine at all, though it acknowledged a territorial dispute. The entries contained most of the same basic factual information about the region, but the entries differed on more recent events. This isn't up to date for today's standards, I should emphasize. So, for example, the Ukrainian version had a section called the annexation of Crimea, but the Russian page refers to the extension of Crimea to the Russian Federation. And most Russian entries on the topic fail to mention that the March 2014 referendum that led to Crimea's annexation was not considered legitimate by the government of Ukraine and many international institutions, which also don't recognise the annexation either. And interestingly, in the news, Russia appeared again, but in a completely different context. It came out that a woman in China has spent the past decade inserting fictionalized historical events and figures into the Russian history section of the Chinese Wikipedia page. This long-standing fictionalization of Russian history only came to light when a Chinese fantasy novelist named Yifan turned to Zhuhu, a Quora-like Q&A platform, to explain his discovery on the chat forum. He explained that he was browsing Wikipedia for inspiration for one of his novels when he went down a rabbit hole, reading about the Great Silver Mine of Kashin that was opened in the Principality of Tver, an independent state of the 13th to 15th centuries during the Russian Empire. According to the Wikipedia article, the silver mine grew to be one of the world's biggest, a city-sized early modern industry worked by approximately 30,000 enslaved people and 10,000 freemen. The mine's well sparked conflicts between the princes of Tver and the dukes of Moscow, the latter of whom attempted to seize the mine in a series of wars between 1305 and 1485. The mine then fell into the hands of the Grand Duchy of Moscow and its successor regime until it closed in the mid-18th century. So as you can imagine, Yifan went down a rabbit hole, learning all about the Tver-Moscow War and the different figures who played significant roles in the history of the mine, and he found hundreds of articles about the subject. But he noted that the tone of the articles were very similar to that of the Wikipedia page. It was only when he swapped to a different language that he saw the discrepancy. What consisted of reels of information on the Chinese Wikipedia page on this particular time period was minimal on the Russian one, or completely non-existent. And when he clicked on a footnote linking him to an academic article on the medieval mining methods used, he was actually redirected to a paper on automated mining of the 21st century. And that was when Yifan realised that it was entirely BS and fake. The characters, the mines, and the wars and events were all completely fiction. Obviously, when this came to light on the forum, it sparked a lot of interest, and Wikipedia underwent an investigation and found that the editor, Zimao, had used 4 puppet accounts to falsify the history of the Qing dynasty and the history of Russia since 2010. And each of these 4 accounts lended credibility to the other, which is why it went unnoticed. Over the past 10 years, Zimao had written several million words of fake Russian history, created 206 articles, and contributed to hundreds more, and created a fake persona for herself, stating on her now deleted profile that she was the daughter of a diplomat stationed in Russia, had a degree in Russian history, and became a Russian citizen after marrying a Russian. But in her apology, she confessed that she was a Chinese pregnant housewife who had never gone to university. And she apparently started making up parts of the history when she began to struggle with her translation of Russian to Chinese. If she didn't know something, she said she admitted that she blindly made it up and cited non-existent books and page numbers from real books that didn't actually back up her claims. Though all of her writing was pulled from the internet, Netzians impressed with her long-term operation have been vocal about their eagerness to read a book of her work, encouraging her to indirectly publish alternative history books. There are quite a few interesting abuses and hoaxes that have gone on Wikipedia over the years, so I decided to dig some up. And I think all of us can admit that it's pretty impressive to have written something so blandly but also so interestingly that it just slipped under everyone's radar for over a decade and tricked everyone into believing that it was fact, not fiction. And if you'd like to be able to write so convincingly, then how about you try taking a writing class over on Skillshare? If you're a writer with a lot of ambition but you don't know how to prioritise your work and organise your thoughts and actually kick yourself into gear into writing that book, whether you're a fiction writer or a researcher or just someone who wants to dabble in the creative world, Skillshare can help you get your writing on track and take you to the next level with your writing or any other creative endeavour that you're pursuing. You see, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn some new skills. If you have a specific skill that you're trying to learn, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. I mean, if you're a writer who loves YA or maybe fantasy in general, then you should join the best-selling author Sabah Tahir as she walks through her personal process for crafting authentic characters. Packed with exercises, prompts, and tried-true techniques, this class will teach you how to create real and nuanced characters that feel like they could walk right off the page into our world. Whether you're new to writing or you're looking to craft stronger characters, this class will give you the tools that you need to develop the types of characters that will stick with your readers. So whether you're making a career pivot or you're leveling up your skills, Skillshare is a great ad-free resource for freelancers, creatives, and entrepreneurs to help them learn new skills and support their growing side hustle. What's more, new premium classes are added every week, so there's always some new dose of inspiration. If you're interested, the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description below or use the code Lady of the Library will get 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and now let's explore some of the other Wikipedia hoaxes that have taken place over the years. So, in March 2014, the second longest running hoax on Wikipedia came to a sad end. You see, since 2005, there was an article on Wikipedia about the Australian Aboriginal deity, a god of physical might and earthly knowledge, called Jar Edo Wens, and that existed on the site without contestation. In fact, it was translated into other language editions of Wikipedia, including French, Polish, Russian, and Turkish, and it was also included in a 2012 book on atheism as part of a list of 500 gods and religions in history that have fallen out of favour. Though the article had been tagged in 2009 for having multiple issues, including a lack of resources, it wasn't until November 2014 that it was flagged as a hoax. Another notable hoax was on Wikipedia's page dedicated to Edward Owens, a fictional man who was part of a historical hoax created by students at George Mason University on December 3rd, 2008, as part of the class project dealing with historical hoaxes called Lying About the Past, a project spearheaded by Professor Mills Kelly. According to the fictional narrative, Edward Owens was an oyster fisherman turned pirate from Virginia, born in 1853. The students went so far as to create a website and Wikipedia page about the one that they called The Last American Pirate, detailing how Owens fell on hard times during the Long Depression of the 1870s and took up piracy in Chesapeake Bay to survive, robbing commercial vessels and wealthy pleasure boaters from Maryland at gunpoint. They even went so far as to create a fake will and YouTube videos of one of the students visiting his abandoned home and gravesite. Through creating and learning about historical hoaxes, Kelly's aim was for his students to become better consumers of historical information, making sure that they acquired the tools to think critically about the sources they came across in their research. However, Kelly's class was needed by many more people, as the project went further than he anticipated and was actually picked up by media outlets, including USA Today, and other academics began reporting on The Last Pirate of America. as though it were factual, which prompted Kelly to have to disclose to the public that it was all a hoax for a class. Then in May 2005, a Wikipedia editor created a hoax article claiming that the 78-year-old American journalist John, surname that I cannot pronounce, I'm just going to call him John. He claimed that the 78-year-old American journalist John had been suspected in the assassinations of US President John F. Kennedy and the Attorney General of Robert F. Kennedy. The article went uncorrected for over 4 months, and it was only when John himself wrote an op-ed piece for USA Today, blasting Wikipedia's credibility, that action was taken. John described himself as a very close friend of Robert Kennedy and said that he'd worked with President Kennedy for a long time. And the most painful thing for him was to have Wikipedia suggest that he was suspected of assassination. The editor, who was responsible for creating this fake online biography, was identified later to be 38-year-old Brian Chase, and he admitted that he did so purely to prank his co-worker, who was familiar with John's family. Brian Chase ultimately ended up resigning from his job as an operations manager at a Nashville delivery company and sent a hand-delivered letter of apology to John. John accepted his apology and also asked for his job to be reinstated, but it didn't seem like that happened. The 2010s were clearly the height of the Wikipedia's hoaxing days, because another interesting fictional character appeared on the Polish Wikipedia site between November 2004 and February 2006. According to his fictional biography, Henryk, born Isaac Amfelborn, was a socialist revolutionary and Polish communist who was so influential that there was a street named after him in Warsaw. The article claimed that the fervent communist, born in Odessa in 1898, participated in the Russian Civil War and joined Hemingway during the 1936-39 Civil War in Spain. The article was then cross-referenced by other editors to 17 other articles, including a very long entry on Hemingway himself. And it only came to light when the hoaxers themselves admitted it was a hoax. One of the hoaxers spoke to the Observer newspaper and admitted that the intention was to highlight the glorification of Soviet officials whose names are still used on the streets of public spaces across Poland, despite many of them being, quote, traitors and murderers who do not deserve such an honour. And finally, we can't end this video without discussing the crocodile shears. Anyone in my audience in bearing of a penis, you may wish to cover your ears, for this was a brutal medieval penis torture device. Apparently. Okay, so this article lasted over 6 years on Wikipedia between 2006 and 2012, and it described itself as a medieval torture device that was used on the penises of men who attempted to assassinate the king. The article claimed that after being heated red hot, the crocodile shears were applied to the penis, which, once exposed to sufficient tension, was torn from the prisoner's body, or at least it was severely mutilated. I think many of us remember these funny Wikipedia hoaxes that come up now and again, but I thought it was quite an interesting demonstration of how, like, history is perpetually, manipulated and changed by everyone. It is always told by the victor, it is always told by the view lens of someone writing from their perspective of their culture, and also it can be just toyed with all the time. But the moral of the story is, even though Wikipedia has gotten better over the years, it is not something that we should still use as a resource for any kind of academic writing in any shape or form. And if you're doing any historical fiction or anything related to that realm, please do not refer to Wikipedia for your resources. Please use the public library instead. It is much better. Or if you have access to, peer-reviewed academic article journals online, then use those. Or contact a friend who does. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider giving it a like or subscribing to my channel. I make videos every week on this channel and also on my second channel, and I also have a podcast. All the details are linked down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are happy and healthy, and remember, books save lives, so keep reading.